Hello, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Author from New Degree Press. I'm your host, John Saunders of the Creator Community Podcast from New Degree Press. Now, a company that ranked 293rd on the Inc. 5000 list this past year. If you're wondering what that list is, it's the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. Incredible story. Now the 15th largest publisher in the world, New Degree Press, and couldn't be more excited than to have with me a special guest today, Alisa Parenti. Alisa published with New Degree Press in April of 2021 and is about to release her audiobook of Betrayal, the Ethel Rosenberg Story. Alisa is a Bloomberg journalist and now author, and couldn't be more excited to have her back on the show to check back in and see what's happening. Alisa, great to see you Alisa, great to see you today.
It's good to see you too, John. And thank you so much to you and to New Degree Press. Really excited for this opportunity to talk about the book and grateful for the support the publisher has given me every step of the way here.
So amazing. And I have to say, as a reader of your book, it was so beautifully written. And I'm not saying this for any other reason than I just so enjoyed it. The depth you took and the research you went into to really take us back to that moment during the Cold War, to feel like we were standing on those street corners in New York City with Ethel and living the life of a spy there for a little while. Not to say that Ethel was a spy, but just just beautifully written book that took us right to the moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And congratulations on the audiobook coming out. I mean, what was that experience like, putting an audiobook together?
It was very hard. It was harder than I anticipated. But the book itself has been a real lifelong dream realized. And so the paperback came out in April of 2021, and the hardcover came out in the fall. And now we're about a month and a half away from releasing the audiobook version. And so I've just really enjoyed the process recording, because my work at Bloomberg has been primarily as a TV and radio journalist, reporter, and anchor. I thought, this is going to be, I know about audio. I certainly can dive right in and record my own audiobook. But it turns out that recording for hour after hour is a lot different than recording little 1-minute chunks of business news or doing even live reports. So it was a very long journey, but I'm toward the end of it now. And I'm really grateful to a lot of the people who have helped me. No one more so than my own husband, who is a regular listener of audiobooks. I was a little disadvantaged because I'm not a big audiobook listener or reader. I am really kind of old school. I like to feel a book in my hands. I actually had to get a Kindle. And so I'm starting to try to look at books on my Kindle. But so it's been a long journey, but quite fun. And I do want to ask, if we can, John, I wanted to mention right off the bat that we're really mindful of the situation right now in Ukraine. As part of my work at Bloomberg, I am now a breaking news editor. So I've stepped away from broadcast and am more on the what we used to call a print reporter, doing a lot of headline and breaking news flashes. And it's very close to my heart what's occurred over the last few days. And I know a lot of people who are tuning in are very mindful of what's going on, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, really Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And John, it has me thinking about heads of state and how this idea of one person betraying an entire population, right? So we think about current, heads of state, Putin, but also Assad, Kim Jong-un, and in the past, Stalin and Hitler. And where the betrayal that I wrote about occurs is, I think in some ways, betrayal occurred to Ethel. Ethel was, of course, accused of betraying the country. But there's, I believe you could make the case that she too was betrayed by her country and by her family, her brother who turned against her. But it's interesting to think of these concepts of betrayal and what exactly occurs when someone gives up on someone else or an entire country. And so I just wanted to give that context and just be mindful of the fact that I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to write books, to be a reporter in a free country, and particularly appreciate appreciate the people who are reporting from that conflict zone and others, and certainly the people who are in Ukraine and the people who are protesting in Russia and elsewhere. So,
well, at
just want to
least
get that
one
out there.
person out there agrees with you, Rebecca Bruckenstein.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I saw a clip on the news this morning of this young woman, probably in her 30s, getting on the train to abandon Ukraine. She's a citizen, right? And she said, if I want to quit my country, I should have the choice to do so, not be forced to do so. And it was, boy, that was on the news this morning. That one really hit me. And to think about your story and your narrative around Ethel and how she was, betrayed by so many throughout her journey. It's fascinating to see the parallel today and how interesting that you're working on it. Did the book play a part in you making this switch from into moving into this editor role?
I think it did. I really do. It was nice to let my words speak for themselves rather than my voice or kind of this visual presentation of the news or of a narrative or a story or an audio, something you're saying or recording. So to actually work with the written word was truly so exciting and a life dream come true. I mean, it sounds really hokey, but I was excited to get up. And then, that moment when you're like too excited to go to sleep because you're like, oh, it's happening. And I have the privilege of telling this story. So I have really enjoyed that. And the opportunity came up inside Bloomberg to kind of go to the other side of the building where the print reporters, what we would call print reporters back in the day, of
what's
course,
that?
Newspapers, not so much anymore, right? So, but what this job involves is tracking developments as they occur. So that, for example, yesterday being very mindful of what was going to be the next tranche of sanctions that were going to be leveled. Would Biden come in and sanction Putin directly? What were the institutions, the oligarchs, who's going to be targeted? And so thinking about it just is very bizarre, John, how it's like a full circle moment for me to be covering at Bloomberg these developments on the world stage at this very moment, and just being so mindful of here was the biggest military incursion since World War II. And the basis of my book and of my story starts with Americans feeling that Russia wasn't being treated as an equal ally during World War II. So they felt the need to, or at least Julius Rosenberg did, to provide some information to the Soviets at that time. Just fascinating.
It's hard to believe that we're watching this on the news in 2022, that, a big country like Russia is attacking, a much smaller one. It's really unfathomable. And how fascinating that, again, that your work, you're sitting right in the center of this now. I have a question for you on now sort of changing left to right brain set, if you will, a little bit, from being a radio person to now doing this writing. What's the process of writing a headline? What is that like?
So I thought, oh, this is going to be great because it's kind of, I'm like, oh, shiny object, easily distracted, right? And so I think, oh, this is great. We'll just be doing like headline, and never going for a deep dive on anything. It turns out it's not, it's never as easy as you think, right? So it turns out that you actually need to understand the nuance of a story on a deeper level to be able to headline what's occurring. So it's about preparation, setting up ahead of time. So ahead of, for example, Jen Psaki, President Biden's spokesperson, a briefing that she gives on a daily basis, you kind of think about what is she going to be talking about. And so preparing some headlines ahead of time and getting ready to publish them as they occur. So it's a little bit thinking about what we knew, for example, before President Biden was going to speak, that the Americans are very interested in the price of oil and how Russia is such an international supplier, not just of oil, but of course, natural gas. And so what does that look like for that sector? So thinking about that, thinking about the oligarchs and whether or not he's, what level of sanctions will be employed. And so kind of mapping that out ahead of time, similar to as reporters will go to a scene of a story ahead of time, map it out, understand, get the context of a story before it happens. But it's exciting to be that close to the news. and also kind of, if I'm being perfectly honest, kind of gut wrenching. Watching the reports and the dispatches when the Russians were gaining control of Chernobyl and the area near there, and that there were reports that some of the Ukrainians were being taken hostage there. Just seeing that as it occurs, and just thinking about my colleagues who are there, who are involved in this kind of reporting from a conflict zone. It just is, it's a lot. I feel like the stakes get raised. You know what I mean, John? It's like, wow, this is very serious work. Again, it's a privilege, and I just am honored to be a part of it. I'm grateful to my employer who supports me with this kind of work, that didn't hold me back from doing this kind of stuff on my own time, and who puts the resources. My manager, heard her sitting there talking to the team leaders, the bureau chief in Kyiv, and folks that are in Warsaw and in Moscow. Hey, are our people safe? How is the team holding up? What do we need to do? What can I do? Do we have access and free flow? Can our people get out of there if they need to? These are the kinds of questions that my editors and my managers at Bloomberg are thinking about as they cover this international event. So it is remarkable. And
it's hard to think about your job and, sort of whatever you do, 9 to 5 kind of thing. And now suddenly, wait, are people going to get hurt or even worse, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I know you're the father of two sons. And one of the things that was also just so hard to see is parents with their children taking shelter underground. And really, honestly, this is something that's not just today, right? I mean, we think about Syrian refugees, and we think about what happened in Afghanistan, and we think about other parts of the world. Certainly, it is amazing to be an American and just to be mindful of what people are really going through.
Incredible. What a unbelievable time to be involved in the news business. One of my favorite museums around the DC area where I live, and of course yourself, was the Newseum. And I remember going there, and probably the first time in 2000, when it used to be on the other side of the river in Virginia. And of course it came to DC, and now is sort of in this influx period. But fascinating to walk through that museum. And I'll never forget a data point they shared. I took a tour one time, probably just before COVID, and they said, in the history of news media, they measure the number of, I think it was measured in days, that there wasn't a war to talk about on the planet, which was just mind blowing to me in some way, shape, or form. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's, I almost had to think really hard to get my head around that, because how is that possible? And you sort of think there's always these conflicts going on. And of course, here we are with one of the biggest countries in the world. It's just mind blowing.
I think it's so true. It's so true.
And fascinating. It must be fascinating to sit in this new seat and have to synthesize all this information down into sort of 5 or 10 words for like a headline. That's kind of mind blowing to me to think about that. Really cool. And what a great exercise. Well, this segment, Meet the Author, and in this case, maybe re-meet the author, Alisa Parenti, who published with New Degree Press, was on the podcast, season 1. You can find on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you consume your podcasts out there. We have her back today to talk about what's been going on since she published her book. I think it's always fascinating for listeners to hear not only authors that are currently in the journey, but those that have been through it are now 6, 12, 18 months away, and kind of what's been happening with them. So this segment is about catching back up with folks like amazing folks like Alisa, and also getting to know them maybe on a deeper level that we didn't know yet. So are we ready to dive into the rapid fire questions, Alisa? Can we do that?
Yes, I'm braced. I'm ready.
I always like to start with the most important question, which is, so everyone can really get to know you. What's your favorite sandwich, Alisa? I think that's a good one for everybody to know. Well,
for those folks tuning in from upstate New York, the answer to this one. It's got to be an Italian sub. I mean, there's just are there really any other sandwiches? And it's got to be Danny's favorite from Wegmans. I mean,
finally somebody got it right. Finally somebody got it right. I'm so glad to hear.
That's for sure. I love a good Italian sandwich, a good sub, with a good bread.
Couldn't agree more. Favorite color?
Blue. I love blue. And I want to mention my sister-in-law designed the cover of the book, and I've got it there. And I had this idea, okay, it's going to be a Cold War story, so we need red and black for sure in the cover, and no yellows or blues or anything. And she had this ingenious idea I'm just going to grab it to show folks. For those, this is the
Such a gorgeous
hardcover.
cover.
This is her idea, and it's basically a bird cage. We have a lot of references and kind of create some imagery of birds throughout. And also, I want to mention my editor Rebecca Bruckenstein, who's on the call, that she was also helpful in that. But at any rate, Lisa came up with this concept of government kind of coming down and entrapping Ethel in this bird cage. So at any rate, but I'm like blues. I love this color blue personally, but and so I wear a lot of blue, but it's just funny how you don't know how the story is going to turn out, right? You just have to be open to collaborations, and so I have to say my color, it's a very long answer, but it's so much for your rapid fire questions, right? With me talking on and on. But my favorite color is blue, and it shows up when you don't expect it.
The cover is absolutely a gorgeous piece of artwork, and you did find a way to get red and black in there. And I have to say, the metaphor is so brilliant for the story, right? The bird cage that kind of looks like the Capitol, and of course, encasing you, trapping you, and betraying you. Awesome. That cover, A+. Favorite or most memorable vacation spot, Alisa?
Okay, this is super cheesy, but I have to say Orlando, Florida, and Disney, because I went there with my husband on our honeymoon. Also, the cheese factor is way through the roof on that one. But
did you get the little ear thing with the
thing? Fortunately, we predated that. You know what I mean? Like, this was back in the dark ages when they didn't have the bride and all of that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I would say I do love Orlando and Disney, and also Hawaii. And my daughter, who's in LA now, I love going to Los Angeles to see her. And so, yes, so that's my, once again, longer answer. I just need to tighten these up. This is not headline writing. It worked here.
Let's go in another direction. Now, we've talked about what makes you happy. Now, let's go in a different direction. What's the scariest animal that you know out there?
Oh. You didn't tell me these were going to be some of the questions ahead of time.
That's half the fun.
Okay, I don't like snakes. I don't like spiders.
All right, that's
bears.
good.
I know are scary, but they don't really scare me so much. I would say snakes are pretty scary.
I think snakes are scary. Last week, a week or two ago, Jason Levin was on, talked a lot about the hyena. So we haven't,
Oh yeah, hyenas are horrifying. Two things I have to say. I am just once again interrupt your quick fire questions. Two things I see in the chat. My friend Deb Ringo talking about Chicago and challenging me on the sandwich thing from upstate New York.
This one.
So for my Midwestern friends who are tuned in, this is like Portillo's. Okay, so I think I have to have regional sandwich favorites. So I guess I have to do Italian sausage sub at Portillo's if I'm in Chicago. If I'm in New York or anywhere on the East Coast, it's got to be the Wegmans sub. Also,
such diplomacy.
Jason Levin, I wanted to mention too, and I hope not to hijack this thing, but I did want to say that one of the great things I found out about New Degree Press and this opportunity to publish my own book from you, sir, John Saunders hosted. He is the author of a book about optimization and becoming a serial optimizer, which is awesome. But I'm particularly proud of what am I reading today? These are some titles that I've just gotten in. This one is my friend Judy Robinson wrote about rediscovering the history of the Philippines. It's 1521, New Degree Press. Awesome book.
I just got my copy.
Oh, so good. Lost in Interpretation. This is by Barbara Hong Lee. And it's a fascinating, again, thinking of ourselves as world citizens. Barbara really opens the doors between our culture and Chinese culture, similar to Judy's piece of opening this corridor between our world and the Philippines. our world, or the States, and then China. And then this, Relationships to Infinity, Jason Levin, very excited about this. It's the art and science of keeping in touch. And also just, I love this idea of books that bring us together. We talk about some of the challenges that we face globally. And one of the things I love about New Degree Press and the authors that have come through, and that are people that I know are working to break down barriers that divide us. And I love that. I just think it's awesome. And I think for anybody out there who's tuned in, you know me, I've got to give my pitch and say, hey, you've probably got a book in you, and let's get to it. Let's see it. You could absolutely have access to a publishing journey and a book journey. And I'd love to help anybody who's contemplating it to close that loop.
Appreciate you sharing that. So many great books out there. I can't wait. Judy's is on my list. I just got Jason's in the mail. Haven't gotten Barbara's yet. I'll definitely pick that one up. I did work with her a bit as she went through the journey. Let's dive back in here. We got through The Scariest Animal. What about a favorite movie that you have out there? Maybe a favorite lesson?
I like the movie The Paper with Michael Keaton and Glenn Close.
Right.
Journalist. Yeah, it's a great journalism story.
Favorite smell?
I guess I'm kind of a citrus person. I do like vanilla, but not too sweet.
I love it. There's something about breakfast smells that really gets me in the morning. Maybe some bakery goods, coffee, bacon, this kind of thing going. Last photo on your phone, Lisa.
My kids, my daughters, Ariana, who is just hilarious. And this will happen to you, John. Like all of a sudden your kids become their own people, and they're adults, and they're out in the world. And I'm so proud of our daughters, Ariana and Maria. I mentioned Maria's out in LA, and Ariana lives here in Northern Virginia, and just so proud of them. And so even though they're not babies anymore, I still have pictures of them on my phone all the time. And my younger daughter, Ariana, has a cat named Leia, Princess Leia from, the reference. And so, I've got quite a few pictures of her. I was always a dog person, but now I've been transformed.
Incredible. It sounds like you've inspired your children, and also Rakana. Do you know this name?
Oh, yeah. There's so many nice comments here. And I just have been so amazed at everybody. A lot of fellow authors here chiming in. Charlie Benevento in upstate New York, and going to that, I've got a colleague from Bloomberg who had tuned in, and she says, Rashana, I think is the way it's been a couple of years, but she says you were a champion for my career.
Yes, sorry.
And it's an inspiration. I mean, wow. I mean, thank you. I don't even know, how to respond. I'm so honored by that. Thank you.
What a lovely thought. Thank you for sharing that, Rachana. So we got the last photo on your phone. Favorite song to sing with or without an audience, Lisa?
I'm afraid to tell you that, well, Frank Sinatra, of course, the standards. However, I have a terrible singing voice, and I will be accepting any donations to not sing. If anybody wants to Venmo me, I can be bought. But I do like rap, which is just weird. I mean,
why is that weird?
Well, it's kind of like older lady, getting it. But anyway, yeah.
I love
and it. Oh my gosh, my godmother, Sally Tassani, is on the call.
Oh.
Thank you so much. It was just so nice of people to take a moment out to dial in, and so I'm grateful for the support.
That's amazing. Well, we're about to queue up Beastie Boys. Are you ready? Could you cue here's a fun one. If you weren't a journalist, had gone to Northwestern through the journalism school there, what would you be doing today, Alisa?
I would definitely be an FBI agent or a cold case investigator, for sure. It was a very dark day.
Discovery, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a dark day when I found out that I was too old to be to go to be an FBI agent, to go over to Quantico. They have an age restriction on that. And I think I was like 40 when I saw that, and the age restriction was 35, I believe, maybe 37. So yeah,
well, at least
so close.
You could still be president with the age thing, right? That's the fact that you would want to be an FBI. I could totally see you working in law enforcement. It doesn't seem at all out of character. And of course, the book and the spy novel, it's just so much fun. What's one thing you should really throw out in 2022, Alisa?
What I should throw away?
Yeah.
Get rid of.
Get rid of.
Okay. How about let's get rid of toxic thoughts? I mean,
Wow.
sometimes, that's like something will come in. I can be very judgy and judge other people. And I mean, in my head, you know what I mean? And I'll be like making these assessments of people. And I need to stop that. Like, I think I'm funny sometimes, and I'll be, sitting there making a judgment about someone. And I'm like, well, this is not who we are. Okay, let's not do that. So I'm not going to be toxic. What else am I going to get rid of?
One thing is okay. That's all we need for the rapid fire.
Oh, good.
list.
Oh, okay, good. See you again.
What I love about that answer is that everyone picks a tangible item, like, oh, I got to get all these papers off my desk, or I got to, go through my basement finally, or something like this. You went with something very intangible, which I find fascinating. Toxic thoughts. What a great message for 2022. I really mean that. Speaking of 2022, what's your most audacious goal for this year?
Can we go for world peace? Is that,
You are really going big on this one. I love it. On every
I really
topic.
would love that. I just, definitely, in all seriousness, to find really a peace in my heart. And it would be great. I know people have suffered so much with the pandemic, and now, we're in the whole country is very polarized, and it's sad. And I would love for a coming together of people and of ideas, and for folks to find peace and good health in their hearts and in the world. Super cheesy, but that's where I'm at.
Not cheesy. You're sitting right in the middle of all these, just horrific events happening on planet Earth right now. So I really appreciate that your ability to take a step back and kind of reflect on how can we improve this. That's fantastic. Have you ever asked anyone for their autograph?
Yes, definitely Frank Sinatra. And my husband put me up to it because he's like, he probably will give you the signature, and I don't know if he'll give it to me. But we were in Chicago, and he's a huge Sinatra fan. And I walked up to him, and he was very nice, and he gave me the autograph. So that was huge.
Wow,
yeah,
that is cool. Let's turn in a bit of a different direction towards your book now, as we head towards the back end of this thing, the closeout here. A few thoughts on your book. Favorite praise quote?
Oh my God! See, again, I don't. I think
You have
Alan
so
Creda.
many, so many.
He Alan Creda is a writer for the New York Times, and he said a riveting portrayal of an exceptionally important story, that meant a lot to me. Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about that quote from Alan was when I went to go try to write a review for you on Amazon, I was like, I can't keep up with what Alan just did here. That was impressive. So that's the only reason I don't like Alan. What about, what was the most sort of eye-opening or bizarre moment for you in the writing journey where you said, holy cow, this is part of writing?
The piece about this being excited about it, and just I think there's a piece of self-discovery that comes with working on a book or any big project, I suppose. And even though it's not about you, ultimately, my whole career is not. You don't want, as a reporter, the worst thing you could do is make it about you, right? It's about the story and the people you're talking about. And the same with this, but then it's kind of this weird moment when you realize, oh my gosh, this journey has taken me closer into myself and to who I am. And so that's why I would really encourage folks, even if you don't end up pursuing a book, just to get to writing, video blogging, just really creating some content, if for no other reason to better understand who you are.
I love that. So much reflection in this chat here today. And, any other thoughts for those considering writing a book? What would you tell somebody about it?
I'd say DM me. Let's talk, because I will be your best cheerleader. Everybody, I was so fortunate to have so many people supporting me. And I know there's some great stories out there, and I would love to be a part of other people's book journeys. I've had that privilege with some of the other authors that we mentioned. And I would really encourage folks to think about hybrid publishing, really check out New Degree Press. So that's what I would say. is that I'm happy to follow up with anyone after the fact.
What an incredible offer to make from an incredible person, author, journalist, Alisa Parenti. One last question for you here, my friend. Describe your writing journey in 5 words. Now we're back to the headlines.
Oh my gosh. Fulfilling,
Solid.
nerve-wracking. That's 2.
It's like a double.
Enriching, scary, fun.
Incredible. A bit of a roller coaster for sure, but you've learned so much about yourself, learned so much about Ethel, and what a extraordinary job you did of telling her story. Super excited about your audiobook coming out. If you haven't bought Alisa's book yet, you can go out and buy it wherever books are available online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever it might be. Just an incredible story and so beautifully written. If you want to get a bit more of a deeper dive into Lisa's story, you can go find her on the Creator Community Podcast on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts out there. But what a fun day. Such great love from the audience out here and so many supporters out there, Alisa. Great to have you here today. Thank you for jumping on the show. And thank you everyone out there in the stream world that joined us as well. As I said, I'm your host, John Saunders with New Degree Press. If you're thinking about writing a book, check out newdegreepress.com and learn a little bit more about the story. It's a fascinating journey and certainly one that I think you'll find a really rewarding journey. Last note, looks like a Parenti here. Is this a Parenti on the?
I didn't pay her to say that. That's my daughter.
I love it.
My brother-in-law, Charlie. Thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody who joined in. And I really appreciate your support and for taking some time with us today. And thank you especially to you, John, and to New Degree Press. I appreciate this opportunity.
It has been a privilege to get to work with you through this and get to know you and read your book. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alisa. Check back with us next week. We've got one, I think, next Thursday and Friday as well, and we'll be promoting those as well soon. But another episode of Meet the Author with Alisa Parenti. What a privilege. Great to see you. Thanks again. If you could stick around for one more minute, we'll wrap it up here. But thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.